100. Joe Namath. Joe wasn't just a quarterback, he was a cultural phenomenon. In Super Bowl III, Namath famously guaranteed victory for his Jets over the heavily favored Colts, and delivered. That single win legitimized the AFL before the merger. Statistically, he was inconsistent, but his swagger, charisma, and impact on the sport made him unforgettable. 99.
Michael Strahan.
Terrorized quarterbacks for 15 seasons with the Giants, setting the single-season sack record with 22.5 in 2001. He capped his career with a Super Bowl upset over the Patriots in 2007, then smoothly transitioned into a media career.
Strahan.
Combination of dominance and personality made him a true modern NFL star. 98. Lee Roy Selmon. The first superstar for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Selmon was a relentless defensive end who became the cornerstone of the young franchise. He won Defensive Player of the Year in 1979 and was a Hall of Fame inductee in 1995. Without Selmon, Tampa Bay's early success never happens. By the way, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed and dropped a like for the algorithm. 97. Derrick Brooks. The leader of Tampa Bay's iconic 2002 defense, Brooks was the definition of consistency. He played 14 seasons, never missed a game, and earned 11 Pro Bowls. That season, he was named Defensive Player of the Year and helped deliver the Bucs their first Super Bowl. His speed and intelligence redefined the linebacker role. 96. Mel Hein. Hein was a two-way Ironman for the New York Giants from 1931 to 1945, starring at center and linebacker. In 1938, he won League MVP, the only offensive lineman ever to do so. His stamina, leadership, and toughness made him a true pioneer of professional football. 95. Larry Allen. Perhaps the strongest man to ever play in the NFL, Allen dominated as an offensive lineman for the Cowboys. Known for bench pressing over 700 pounds, he combined raw strength with surprising agility. An 11-time Pro Bowler and Super Bowl champion, Allen is often regarded as the most physically dominant guard in NFL history. 94. Lenny Moore. Moore was a dual threat weapon for the Baltimore Colts in the 1950s and 60s. Playing halfback and flanker, he combined speed and elusiveness, scoring touchdowns in 18 straight games, an NFL record at the time. Moore was ahead of his era, blending rushing and receiving skills long before it became standard. 93. Sam Huff, a bruising middle linebacker for the Giants. In the 1950s, Huff became the face of New York's defense. He was the first linebacker ever featured on the cover of Time magazine, and even starred in a CBS documentary called The Violent World of Sam Huff, making him one of football's first defensive celebrities. 92. Michael Irvin. The playmaker was the emotional leader of the Dallas Cowboys dynasty of the 1990s. He was known for his fiery competitiveness, highlight reel catches, and ability to rise in big games. With 3 Super Bowl rings and 5 Pro Bowls, Irvin set the tone for one of the league's greatest eras of dominance. 91. Fran Tarkenton. Tarkenton was the NFL's first great scrambling quarterback. Playing for the Vikings and Giants, he extended plays with his legs in a way that foreshadowed today's dual-threat QBs. He retired in 1978 as the NFL's all-time leader in passing yards and touchdowns. And though he never won a Super Bowl, he reached 3 with Minnesota. Kurt Warner. Warner's story is pure Hollywood. From stocking groceries to leading the greatest show on turf, he went from an undrafted Arena League quarterback to a 2-time MVP and Super Bowl champion with the Rams. His quick release and accuracy powered one of the most explosive offenses ever. Warner's rise remains one of the greatest underdog stories in NFL history. 89. Ernie Nevers. One of the earliest legends of pro football, Nevers was a do-it-all star in the 1920s and 30s. He played fullback, kicked, punted, and even coached. His most enduring record came in 1929, when he scored 40 points in a single game for the Chicago Cardinals, a mark that still stands nearly a century later. 88. The ultimate ball-hawking safety, Reed was the heart of Baltimore's secondary for over a decade. With uncanny instincts and range, he intercepted 64 passes, returning 7 for touchdowns. He also holds the record for the longest interception return, 107 yards. A Super Bowl champion, Reed is considered by many the greatest safety to ever play. 87. Elroy, Crazy Legs, Hirsch. A star of the 1940s and 50s, Hirsch earned his nickname for his unusual, twisting running style. With the Los Angeles Rams, he became one of the NFL's first big play receivers, leading the league in receiving yards and touchdowns in 1951. His speed and style helped usher in the passing era. 86. Willie Davis. As a defensive end for the Green Bay Packers during the Lombardi Dynasty, Davis was the enforcer up front. Though sacks weren't officially recorded, he was credited with over 100 during his career. A 5-time Pro Bowler and 2-time Super Bowl champion, Davis was a cornerstone of the Packers' defense. Marcus Allen. Allen's career was defined by versatility and longevity. He won the Heisman at USC, was the first player ever to gain 10,000 rushing yards and 5,000 receiving yards in the NFL, and won a Super Bowl MVP with the Raiders. His 74-yard weaving touchdown run in Super Bowl XVIII remains one of the most iconic plays in NFL history. 84. Joe Schmidt. A middle linebacker for the Detroit Lions in the 1950s and 60s, Schmidt was known for his intelligence and toughness. A 10-time Pro Bowler and 2-time champion, he later became head coach of the Lions. He was one of the early prototype linebackers, setting the standard for leadership in the middle. 83. Norm Van Brocklin. Nicknamed the Dutchman, Van Brocklin was a Hall of Fame quarterback in the 1950s. He won titles with both the Rams and Eagles, and set the NFL single-game passing record with 554 yards, a mark that still stands today. Known for his cannon arm and leadership, Van Brocklin bridged football's early eras. 82. Ted Hendricks. Standing at 6 feet 7 inches, Hendricks was a linebacker like no other. Known as the Mad Stork, he was lanky but devastatingly effective. A 4-time Super Bowl champion with the Colts and Raiders, he made 8 Pro Bowls and was famous for blocking kicks, tallying 25 in his career. 81. Steve Young. Young's career began with struggles in Tampa Bay and the USFL, but once he landed in San Francisco, he blossomed. Taking over for Joe Montana, Young won 2 MVPs and led the 49ers to a Super Bowl XXIX victory, where he threw a record 6 touchdown passes. His combination of accuracy and mobility made him a prototype for the modern dual-threat quarterback. 80. Troy Aikman. The leader of the Dallas Cowboys dynasty of the 1990s. Aikman was the definition of steady and reliable. He guided the team to 3 Super Bowl wins in 4 years, earning a Super Bowl MVP in 1993. Though his stats weren't gaudy, his leadership, accuracy, and ability to rise in big moments made him a Hall of Famer and cornerstone of one of football's greatest dynasties. 79. Emlyn Tunnell. Known as the Gremlin, Tunnell was the first African-American player inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. A safety for the Giants and Packers in the 1940s and 50s, he recorded 79 career interceptions, a record at the time, and was also a dynamic punt returner. His pioneering presence and elite play made him one of the game's true trailblazers. 78. Bruce Matthews. Perhaps the most versatile offensive lineman in NFL history, Matthews played an astonishing 19 seasons with the Houston Oilers/Tennessee Titans. He lined up at every position on the offensive line at some point, making 14 Pro Bowls, tied for the most ever by a lineman. His durability and consistency cemented him as one of the all-time greats up front. 77. Tony Dorsett. A Heisman Trophy winner at Pitt, Dorsett entered the NFL with enormous hype and delivered immediately. He helped the Cowboys win a Super Bowl as a rookie in 1977 and went on to rush for over 12,000 yards in his career. His 99-yard touchdown run in 1983 still stands as one of the NFL's most iconic plays. 76. Art Shell. One of the best offensive tackles of the 1970s, Shell anchored the Oakland Raiders line and helped lead them to 2 Super Bowl titles. His size and technique made him nearly impossible to beat. And after his playing career, he became the NFL's first black head coach in the modern era, continuing his impact on the game beyond the field. 75. Darrell Green. Green played an incredible 20 seasons at cornerback for Washington, retiring at age 42. Known for his blazing speed, he famously won NFL fastest man competitions. Green combined athleticism with consistency, earning 7 Pro Bowls and 2 Super Bowl titles. He's remembered as one of the greatest cover corners of all time. 74. Marion Motley, a bruising fullback for the Cleveland Browns in the 1940s and 50s. Motley was one of the first African-American players to break the color barrier in pro football. At 6 feet 1 inch, 230 pounds, he was bigger than many linemen of his era, yet fast enough to outrun defenses. Motley was both a pioneer and a dominant force, helping Paul Brown's Browns revolutionize the game. 73. Ozzie Newsome, nicknamed the Wizard of Oz. Newsome was one of the first great receiving tight ends. Playing for the Browns in the 1980s, he finished with nearly 7,800 receiving yards, a remarkable total for his position at the time. After his playing days, Newsome became one of the most successful executives in NFL history, building 2 Super Bowl winning teams as GM of the Ravens. 72. Jonathan Ogden, the first ever draft pick of the Baltimore Ravens in 1996. Ogden became the foundation of the franchise. At 6 feet 9 inches and over 340 pounds, he combined overwhelming size with agility, becoming one of the most dominant left tackles ever. An 11-time Pro Bowler, Ogden set the standard for blindside protectors. 71. Paul Warfield, a silky smooth wide receiver, Warfield was known for his precise route running and big play ability. Playing for the Browns and Dolphins, he averaged an incredible 20.1 yards per catch over his career, winning 2 Super Bowls in Miami. His speed and elegance made him one of the most dangerous receivers of his era. Marshall Faulk. Faulk was the centerpiece of the greatest show on turf Rams. A dual-threat running back who could score from anywhere, he was the second player to total 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving yards in the same season. A league MVP and Super Bowl champion, Faulk revolutionized the role of the running back in modern offenses. 69. Bobby Bell. Bell was the ultimate linebacker athlete. Playing for the Kansas City Chiefs in the 1960s and 70s, he was fast enough to cover receivers, strong enough to rush the passer, and instinctive against the run. A 9-time Pro Bowler and Super Bowl IV champion, Bell set the mold for versatile linebackers. 68. Mike Webster. Known as Iron Mike, Webster anchored the Pittsburgh Steelers offensive line during their 1970s dynasty. A Hall of Fame center, he was the heart of the unit that powered 4 Super Bowl titles. His strength and durability were legendary, though his tragic struggles with CTE later made him a symbol of the NFL's concussion crisis. 67. Kellen Winslow. One of the first modern tight ends, Winslow turned the position into a true receiving weapon. With the Chargers' Air Coryell offense, he dominated linebackers and safeties, including his heroic 13-catch performance in the 1981 playoff epic against the Dolphins. Winslow finished with nearly 7,000 receiving yards in just 9 seasons. 66. Willie Brown. An undrafted gem, Brown became one of the greatest cornerbacks ever. With the Raiders, he earned 9 Pro Bowl nods and sealed Super Bowl XI with a 75-yard pick six, one of the most iconic plays in NFL history. His physical style defined the cornerback position in the 1970s. 65. Randy Moss. Few players ever changed the game like Moss. At 6 feet 4 inches with blazing speed, he could outrun and outjump any defender. His rookie year with Minnesota set records, and his 23 touchdown season in 2007 with the Patriots is still unmatched. Moss was controversial at times, but his talent made him one of the most feared receivers of all time. 64. Herb Adderley. A star of Vince Lombardi's Packers, and later the Cowboys, Adderley was a dominant cornerback in the 1960s. He played in 5 NFL championship games and 4 Super Bowls, winning all of them. His 48 career interceptions and physical style made him a key figure in multiple dynasties. 63. Jim Otto. The legendary center of the Oakland Raiders, Otto symbolized toughness. He wore 0-0 on his jersey and played through countless injuries, starting an incredible 210 consecutive games. His durability and leadership helped the Raiders become perennial contenders in the 1960s and 70s. 62. Randy White. Nicknamed the Manster, half man, half monster. White was the cornerstone of Dallas's doomsday defense. A relentless defensive tackle, he was a 9-time Pro Bowler and Super Bowl XII co-MVP. White's mix of quickness and power made him nearly unblockable. 61. LaDainian Tomlinson. LT was a touchdown machine. With the Chargers, he scored 31 touchdowns in 2006, still an NFL record. A 5-time Pro Bowler and league MVP, Tomlinson retired with over 13,000 rushing yards and 145 total touchdowns. His mix of speed, vision, and receiving ability made him one of the most complete running backs in history. 60. Jack Ham. One of the leaders of the Steelers' 1970s dynasty, Ham was a linebacker with rare intelligence and athleticism. He earned 8 Pro Bowl selections and 4 Super Bowl rings, while excelling in coverage and run defense. Teammates called him one of the smartest defenders they'd ever played with. Mike Ditka. Before he became coach, Ditka was one of the first great tight ends. With the Bears and Cowboys in the 1960s, he redefined the position, catching passes and blocking with equal ferocity. He later won a Super Bowl as both a player and coach, cementing his place in football history. 58. Steve Van Buren. The Philadelphia Eagles' first true superstar, Van Buren was a power runner of the 1940s. He led the NFL in rushing 4 times, scored the winning touchdown in the 1948 championship game in a snowstorm, and carried the Eagles to back-to-back titles. He retired as the league's all-time rushing leader. 57. Mike Singletary. The heart of the Chicago Bears feared 1985 defense. Singletary was the ultimate middle linebacker, fiery, intense, and relentlessly prepared. He won 2 Defensive Player of the Year awards and a Super Bowl, while earning 10 Pro Bowl nods. His piercing eyes behind the face mask became an iconic image of intimidation. 56. Gene Upshaw. A dominant guard for the Oakland Raiders, Upshaw paved the way for their bruising run game and protected quarterbacks for 15 years. A Hall of Famer with 2 Super Bowl rings, he later became the head of the NFL Players Association, shaping labor policy and player rights for decades. Earl Campbell. Few running backs were as punishing as Campbell. The 1977 Heisman winner brought his bruising style to the Houston Oilers, winning league MVP in 1979. He led the league in rushing 3 straight years and became the definition of power running, trucking defenders in highlight after highlight. 54. Forrest Gregg. Vince Lombardi once called Gregg the finest player I ever coached. The versatile lineman anchored the Packers' offensive line during their dynasty years, winning 5 championships and 3 Super Bowls. He later added a coaching career, but his blocking dominance is what defined him. 53. Willie Lanier. Lanier was the first African-American middle linebacker to become a star in the NFL, leading the Kansas City Chiefs in the 1960s and 70s. Known for his punishing hits and keen instincts, he made 8 Pro Bowls and was a key part of the Chiefs' Super Bowl IV victory. 52. Eric Dickerson. With his upright running style and blazing speed, Dickerson was nearly unstoppable in the 1980s. He set the single-season rushing record with 2,105 yards in 1984, a mark that still stands. A 6-time Pro Bowler and Hall of Famer, Dickerson's blend of size and acceleration was unmatched. 51. Bart Starr. The steady hand of Vince Lombardi's Packers, Starr led Green Bay to 5 championships, including the first 2 Super Bowls. Known for his poise and leadership, he earned Super Bowl I and II MVP honors. Starr wasn't flashy, but he was the perfect field general for the most dominant dynasty of the 1960s. Terry Bradshaw. The Pittsburgh Steelers dynasty of the 1970s was loaded with Hall of Fame talent, but Terry Bradshaw was the quarterback who tied it all together. Known for his cannon arm and fearless deep throws, he guided the Steelers to 4 Super Bowl titles in 6 years, the first quarterback ever to do it. Bradshaw was named Super Bowl MVP twice and became the face of Pittsburgh's dominance. Though his stats don't match modern QBs, his clutch play and leadership made him an all-time winner. 49. Mike Haynes. One of the smoothest cornerbacks to ever play, Haynes combined size, speed, and intelligence to lock down receivers throughout the 1970s and 80s. Starting with the Patriots and later with the Raiders, Haynes was a 9-time Pro Bowler and helped lead the Raiders to a Super Bowl XVIII victory. Many consider him the prototype of the modern shutdown corner. 48. Red Grange. The Galloping Ghost was one of football's first true superstars. Grange's signing with the Chicago Bears in 1925 helped legitimize the NFL during its early years. Known for his dazzling runs at Illinois and then in the pros, he wasn't just a player. He was a cultural phenomenon who brought attention and credibility to the league in its infancy. 47. Ray Nitschke. The heart of Vince Lombardi's Packers defense, Nitschke was the prototype of the middle linebacker, tough, intimidating, and relentless. He won 5 NFL championships and 2 Super Bowls, earning the respect of teammates and opponents alike. Nitschke's bone-crushing hits and fiery leadership embodied Green Bay's dominance of the 1960s. 46. Roger Staubach. Captain America was the perfect leader for the Dallas Cowboys of the 1970s. A Heisman winner at Navy and a Vietnam veteran before his NFL career, Staubach brought poise and leadership to the Cowboys' America's team image. He won 2 Super Bowls, was named MVP of Super Bowl VI, and defined clutch quarterback play. Tony Gonzalez. Gonzalez revolutionized the tight end position. Drafted by the Chiefs in 1997, he retired as the all-time leader among tight ends in catches, yards, and touchdowns. His size, hands, and route running made him almost impossible to defend. A 14-time Pro Bowler, Gonzalez made the tight end position central to modern passing offenses. 44. Mel Blount. At 6 feet 3 inches and over 200 pounds, Blount redefined the cornerback position with his physical play. His dominance was so overwhelming that the NFL created the Mel Blount rule to restrict contact with receivers beyond 5 yards. He won 4 Super Bowls with the Steelers, earned Defensive Player of the Year in 1975, and became a symbol of Pittsburgh's Steel Curtain defense. 43. Alan Page. A leader of the Minnesota Vikings' legendary Purple People Eaters defense. Page was one of the most disruptive defensive tackles ever. He became the first defensive player to win league MVP in 1971 and finished with over 140 career sacks. Beyond football, Page also became a state Supreme Court justice, showing his greatness extended far beyond the field. 42. John Mackey. Mackey was one of the NFL's first truly modern tight ends. With the Baltimore Colts, he combined size and speed to stretch defenses vertically. His 75-yard touchdown in Super Bowl V symbolized his big play ability. Mackey was also instrumental off the field as the president of the NFL Players Association, fighting for player rights and pensions. 41. Rod Woodson. One of the most versatile defensive backs in history, Woodson played both cornerback and safety at an elite level. Over 17 seasons, he recorded 71 interceptions, 12 touchdowns, and was named to 11 Pro Bowls. He won a Super Bowl with the Ravens in 2000 and was named Defensive Player of the Year in 1993. Woodson's combination of speed, ball skills, and longevity made him a true all-time great. O.J. Simpson. Before his name became synonymous with scandal, O.J. Simpson was one of the most electrifying running backs the NFL had ever seen. With the Buffalo Bills in the 1970s, he became the first player to rush for over 2,000 yards in a season, 1973, and he did it in just 14 games. Nicknamed the Juice, he was a 6-time Pro Bowler and won league MVP. His speed and smooth running style made him unstoppable. Unfortunately, Simpson's football legacy is forever overshadowed by his infamous 1995 double murder trial, which remains one of the most notorious sagas in American history. Gino Marchetti. As the anchor of the Baltimore Colts defensive line in the 1950s and 60s, Marchetti was regarded as one of the most relentless pass rushers of his era. He helped lead the Colts to 2 championships and was named to 11 straight Pro Bowls. Many historians consider him one of the original sack artists, the prototype for future defensive ends. 38. Lance Alworth. Nicknamed Bambi for his speed and elegance, Alworth was the first true superstar wide receiver of the AFL. With the San Diego Chargers, he became the first AFL player inducted into the Hall of Fame. His combination of leaping ability and hands made him nearly impossible to guard, and his influence paved the way for the modern wide receiver position. 37. Jim Thorpe. Thorpe's career came before the Super Bowl era, but his legend transcends eras. An Olympic gold medalist, pro baseball player, and football pioneer, Thorpe was named the first president of what became the NFL. His versatility was unmatched, He played running back, defensive back, kicker, and even punter. Many consider him the greatest all-around athlete of the 20th century. 36. Raymond Berry. Berry began his career as a little-known 20th-round draft pick, but became Johnny Unitas's favorite target with the Baltimore Colts. His precision route running and soft hands helped him become a two-time champion, including his iconic 12-catch performance in the 1958 NFL Championship game, often called the greatest game ever played. Berry later became a successful head coach, proving his football mind was as sharp as his skills. 35. Chuck Bednarik. Known as Concrete Charlie, Bednarik was one of the last true two-way players in NFL history. A Hall of Fame linebacker and center for the Philadelphia Eagles, he played every snap in the 1960 NFL Championship game, famous for his punishing tackles, including his devastating hit on Frank Gifford. Bednarik embodied the toughness of the sport's early era. 34. Deion Sanders. Primetime wasn't just a nickname, it was a brand. Deion Sanders is widely considered the greatest cover corner in NFL history. With unmatched speed and charisma, he shut down receivers while also serving as a dynamic punt returner and even a part-time wideout. Sanders won 2 Super Bowls, made 8 Pro Bowls, and became a cultural icon. His swagger and dominance changed how cornerback was played forever. Sid Luckman. Luckman was the Chicago Bears' star quarterback during the 1940s and one of the first to master the T formation. He threw for 7 touchdowns in a single game in 1943, a record that stood for decades. Luckman led the Bears to 4 NFL championships and is often credited with helping bring modern passing concepts into pro football. 32. Jim Parker. An offensive lineman for the Baltimore Colts in the 1950s and 60s, Parker was equally dominant at both guard and tackle. Protecting Johnny Unitas, he earned 8 Pro Bowls and was named to the NFL's 75th anniversary all-time team. Parker was one of the first true pass-blocking technicians, helping usher in the modern era of offensive line play. 31. Bruce Smith. The NFL's all-time leader in sacks with 200, Bruce Smith was the definition of dominance off the edge. Playing mostly for the Buffalo Bills, he terrorized quarterbacks for nearly 2 decades. A 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, Smith helped lead Buffalo to 4 straight Super Bowls in the early 90s. His combination of speed, power, and longevity made him arguably the greatest defensive end ever. Dick Night Train. One of the most feared defenders in NFL history, Lane's story is legendary. An undrafted player who talked his way into a tryout, he set the record with 14 interceptions in a single season in 1952, still untouched today. Known for his brutal clothesline tackles, which were eventually outlawed, Lane combined intimidation with unmatched instincts. His impact was so great that his nickname, Night Train, still evokes fear decades later. 29. Jack Lambert. The face of Pittsburgh's Steel Curtain defense, Lambert was a fiery middle linebacker who symbolized the toughness of the 1970s Steelers dynasty. With his toothless grin and relentless aggression, Lambert anchored a defense that won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. He earned NFL Defensive Player of the Year in 1976 and left a legacy as one of the fiercest enforcers in NFL history. 28. Emmitt Smith. The NFL's all-time rushing leader with 18,355 yards, Emmitt Smith was the engine of the Dallas Cowboys dynasty in the 1990s. Not the fastest or flashiest back, Smith was durable, consistent, and deadly in the red zone. He won 3 Super Bowls, an MVP, and a Super Bowl MVP, while also scoring the most rushing touchdowns ever, 164. His longevity and consistency set him apart. 27. Merlin Olsen. As part of the Rams' famed fearsome foursome, Olsen was one of the most dominant defensive tackles of the 1960s and 70s. A 14-time Pro Bowler, he combined strength and intelligence to control the line of scrimmage. Beyond football, Olsen had a long career as a broadcaster and actor, but his relentless excellence on the field cemented his place among the greats. 26. Bob Lilly. Known as Mr. Cowboy, Lilly was the first draft pick in Dallas Cowboys history and became the cornerstone of their defense. A defensive tackle with incredible quickness, he anchored Dallas's doomsday defense, earning 11 Pro Bowls and a spot on the NFL's 75th and 100th anniversary teams. His famous 29-yard sack of Bob Grease in Super Bowl VI symbolized his dominance. 25. Dan Marino. Marino redefined quarterbacking in the 1980s. With his lightning-quick release and cannon arm, he became the first quarterback to throw for 5,000 yards in a season, 1984, and retired as the NFL's all-time leader in yards and touchdowns. Though he never won a Super Bowl, Marino's style influenced an entire generation of pass-heavy offenses. He is often cited as the greatest pure passer ever. 24. John Hanna. Widely considered the greatest offensive guard in NFL history, Hanna dominated for the New England Patriots throughout the 1970s and 80s. Nicknamed Hog, his blend of strength and agility made him almost impossible to beat in the trenches. He was a 10-time All-Pro and a member of the NFL's 75th and 100th anniversary teams, setting the gold standard for interior linemen. 23. John Elway. Elway was the ultimate competitor. With a rocket arm and the mobility to escape pressure, he led the Broncos to 5 Super Bowls, finally winning back-to-back championships in the late 1990s. Famous for the drive in the 1986 AFC Championship, Elway's clutch play defined him. He retired with over 50,000 passing yards and is remembered as one of the most resilient quarterbacks in history. 22. Gale Sayers. The Kansas Comet was one of the most dazzling players to ever step on a football field. In just 7 NFL seasons cut short by injury, Sayers produced highlight runs that seemed impossible, cutting on a dime, gliding past defenders. In 1965, he scored 22 touchdowns as a rookie, still tied for the most in a rookie season. His career was short, but his brilliance was eternal. 21. Tom Brady, the ultimate winner. Drafted 199th overall in 2000, Brady became the greatest quarterback of all time. With 7 Super Bowls, 3 MVPs, and nearly every major passing record, he redefined what success looks like in the NFL. From leading the Patriots dynasty with Bill Belichick to winning a championship in Tampa Bay at age 43, Brady's career was defined by resilience, longevity, and unmatched clutch performances. Brett Favre. Favre was the ultimate gunslinger. With the Green Bay Packers, he played with fearless abandon, throwing rocket passes into tight coverage, sometimes for touchdowns, sometimes for interceptions. But his toughness and joy for the game made him unforgettable. He started an NFL record 297 consecutive games, won 3 straight MVPs from 1995 to 97, and led the Packers to victory in Super Bowl 31. He retired as the all-time leader in touchdowns, yards, and interceptions, a testament to his greatness and his recklessness. Despite later controversies, Brett Favre's swashbuckling style made him one of football's most exciting and influential quarterbacks. 19. Bronco Nagurski. One of the NFL's earliest icons, Nagurski was the embodiment of raw power. Playing for the Chicago Bears in the 1930s, he lined up at fullback, tackle, and defensive end, smashing through opponents with unmatched physicality. Standing 6 feet 2 inches and 235 pounds, gigantic for his era, he became the symbol of George Halas's Bruising Bears. Nagurski helped popularize the league and won 3 championships, cementing himself as a mythic figure in football's foundation years. 18. Ray Lewis. The heart and soul of the Baltimore Ravens for 17 seasons, Lewis was one of the most intimidating linebackers in NFL history. A 2-time Defensive Player of the Year and Super Bowl MVP, his fiery speeches and bone-crushing hits defined the Ravens' identity. He anchored one of the greatest defenses ever in 2000, leading Baltimore to a Super Bowl win. Though his career began clouded by the Atlanta murder trial in 2000, he pled guilty to obstruction of justice. Lewis rebuilt his legacy into that of a leader, mentor, and Hall of Famer. 17. Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders was pure magic on the field. The Detroit Lions legend rushed for over 15,000 yards in just 10 seasons, dazzling fans with his impossible jukes, spins, and cuts. He won 4 rushing titles, an MVP in 1997, and retired abruptly in his prime at age 30. His style was unique. He often lost yards dancing behind the line, only to break free for jaw-dropping long runs. Sanders never played in a Super Bowl, but his artistry with the football makes him one of the most beloved players in NFL history. Otto Graham. Long before the Super Bowl era, Otto Graham was the most dominant quarterback the NFL had ever seen. With the Cleveland Browns from 1946 to 1955, Graham led his team to 10 straight championship appearances, winning 7. He combined pinpoint passing with toughness and mobility, retiring with a career record of 105-17-4. Graham's dominance cemented the Browns as football's first dynasty and set the standard for quarterback excellence. 15. Deacon Jones. Known as the Secretary of Defense, Deacon Jones is the man who invented the term sack, a relentless pass rusher for the Los Angeles Rams. In the 1960s, Jones used his famous head slap move to terrorize quarterbacks. Though sacks weren't officially recorded in his era, historians credit him with nearly 200 career sacks. He was twice named Defensive Player of the Year and became the prototype for modern edge rushers. His impact reshaped defensive football forever. Sammy Baugh. Sammy Baugh was the first modern quarterback, coaches often said. Playing for Washington in the 1930s and 40s, Baugh was the league's first prolific passer. He led the NFL in passing yards, completion percentage, and even punting and interceptions in his career. A true three-way player. In 1943, he led the league in passing, punting, and interceptions all in the same season, a feat that may never be repeated. His arm revolutionized the forward pass and helped transform football from a running game into the aerial spectacle it is today. 13. Mean Joe Green. The cornerstone of the Pittsburgh Steelers dynasty, Joe Green's intensity and dominance defined the Steel Curtain defense. A 4-time Super Bowl champion and 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, Green set the tone for toughness and relentlessness in Pittsburgh. Off the field, his famous Coca-Cola commercial made him a cultural icon. On the field, he was unblockable, anchoring the defense that turned Pittsburgh into a dynasty in the 1970s. Anthony Munoz. Widely considered the greatest offensive tackle of all time, Munoz anchored the Cincinnati Bengals line for 13 seasons. A 9-time first-team All-Pro, he combined size, strength, and technique in a way that no lineman had before. Though he never won a Super Bowl, his dominance was so overwhelming that he remains the gold standard for offensive tackles. 11. Ronnie Lott. Ronnie Lott was the ultimate enforcer in the secondary. Playing cornerback and safety, he won 4 Super Bowls with the 49ers and was named All-Pro at multiple positions. Famous for his bone-jarring hits, Lott once had the tip of his finger amputated so he wouldn't miss a game. His leadership, physicality, and versatility made him one of the most feared and respected defenders in NFL history. 10. Dick Butkus. Few players in NFL history struck fear into opponents the way Dick Butkus did. Playing middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears in the 1960s and 70s, Butkus was pure intimidation. At 6 feet 3 inches and 245 pounds, he roamed sideline to sideline like a predator, delivering bone-crunching hits that became his signature. Quarterbacks dreaded seeing him, running backs tried to avoid him, and teammates swore his presence alone could change the tone of a game. Butkus wasn't just violent, he was brilliant. His instincts allowed him to diagnose plays before they developed, and his relentless pursuit ensured ball carriers rarely escaped. In just 9 seasons, he was selected to 8 Pro Bowls and earned 5 first-team All-Pro honors. Injuries cut his career short, but the impact he left was seismic. His name became shorthand for defensive toughness. To this day, when people imagine the archetype of a middle linebacker, they imagine Dick Butkus. Don Hutson. Before Jerry Rice, there was Don Hutson. Playing in the 1930s and 40s for the Green Bay Packers, Hutson revolutionized the wide receiver position. At a time when passing was still a novelty, he perfected precise routes and used blazing speed to outmatch defenders. Hutson led the league in receiving yards 7 times and receiving touchdowns 9 times, an unheard-of level of dominance for his era. By the time he retired, he held virtually every major receiving record. His career totals dwarfed his peers, and his innovation helped transform football from a ground-based game into one that embraced the forward pass. He was a 3-time NFL champion, 2-time MVP, and the league's first true superstar receiver, Without Hudson, the modern passing game might have taken decades longer to develop. Peyton Manning. Few quarterbacks have ever been as cerebral, prepared, and dominant as Peyton Manning. Known as the Sheriff, Manning was essentially a coach on the field. He famously orchestrated offenses at the line of scrimmage, reading defenses, and calling audibles with surgical precision. Over 18 seasons, Manning won 5 MVPs, the most ever, and retired with over 71,000 passing yards and 539 touchdowns. But it wasn't just numbers. Manning transformed both the Colts and Broncos into perennial contenders, winning 2 Super Bowls, including a storybook finale in Super Bowl 50. His battles with Tom Brady defined an era, and his preparation and leadership set the standard for modern quarterback play. For fans, Manning was proof that football IQ could be just as dangerous as physical talent. Reggie White, nicknamed the Minister of Defense. Reggie White was a once-in-a-generation force on the defensive line, a deeply religious man off the field, and a nightmare on it. White amassed 198 sacks, the second most in NFL history. His trademark hump move, tossing aside 300-pound linemen as if they were children, became legendary. White anchored dominant defenses for both the Philadelphia Eagles and Green Bay Packers, earning 13 Pro Bowl selections and winning a Super Bowl with Green Bay in 1996. Beyond his stats, his presence demanded double teams, freeing teammates to shine. White embodied both power and grace, and his legacy as a leader, champion, and unstoppable force makes him arguably the greatest defensive lineman to ever play. 6. Johnny Unitas. Long before Brady, Manning, or Montana, Johnny Unitas was the prototype of the modern quarterback. With his signature black high-top cleats and icy composure, Unitas led the Baltimore Colts to multiple championships in the 1950s and 60s. He engineered the winning drive in the 1958 NFL championship game, often called the greatest game ever played, which helped catapult pro football into the national spotlight. Unitas retired as the NFL's all-time leader in passing yards and touchdowns. But more importantly, he set the standard for quarterback leadership. He called his own plays, commanded respect in the huddle, and built a reputation for toughness and clutch performances. For decades, Unitas was the measuring stick for greatness at the position. Walter Payton, nicknamed Sweetness, Walter Payton was as graceful as he was punishing. Over 13 seasons with the Chicago Bears, he rushed for 16,726 yards, breaking Jim Brown's all-time record. His style was unique, combining speed, balance, and a stiff arm that defenders dreaded. Payton wasn't just about stats, though. He embodied work ethic, humility, and class. Despite years on mediocre Bears teams, Payton never complained, never quit, and always gave his all. His crowning moment came in 1985 when the Bears won the Super Bowl, cementing his place as one of the game's greatest champions. Off the field, his charitable work left an enduring impact. Walter Payton wasn't just one of the greatest running backs. He was one of the greatest men to ever play football. Joe Montana. When it comes to clutch, no quarterback ever did it better than Joe Montana. Joe Cool led the San Francisco 49ers dynasty of the 1980s, winning 4 Super Bowls and never losing on the game's biggest stage. He was named Super Bowl MVP 3 times and authored some of the sport's most iconic moments, including the catch to Dwight Clark in the 1981 NFC Championship. Montana wasn't the biggest, fastest, or strongest quarterback, but his poise under pressure was unmatched. His pinpoint accuracy in Bill Walsh's West Coast offense made him nearly unstoppable. For 2 decades, he was the gold standard of quarterback greatness, and even in retirement, his reputation as the ultimate clutch performer lives on. Lawrence Taylor. Lawrence Taylor didn't just play linebacker, he redefined it. Drafted by the Giants in 1981, Taylor brought a ferocity and explosiveness the NFL had never seen. His ability to rush the passer off the edge was so dominant that offenses were forced to invent new blocking schemes just to slow him down. Taylor won 2 Super Bowls, 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and the 1986 NFL MVP, one of only 2 defensive players ever to win the award. His presence revolutionized football, making left tackle one of the most critical positions in the sports. LT wasn't just the best defender of his era, he's considered the most disruptive defensive player of all time. Jim Brown. For many, Jim Brown is still the greatest football player ever. In just 9 seasons with the Cleveland Browns, he rushed for 12,312 yards, led the league in rushing 8 times, and averaged an absurd 5.2 yards per carry. At 6 feet 2 inches and 230 pounds, he was bigger than most defenders, but still faster and more agile. A once-in-a-lifetime combination of size and skill. Brown retired at age 29, still at the peak of his powers, to pursue a career in acting and activism. His dominance was so absolute that even decades later, his stats remain mind-boggling. Beyond numbers, Brown represented power, independence, and the idea of an athlete who could not be controlled by anyone but himself. Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice isn't just the greatest wide receiver in NFL history. He's the greatest player, period. Over 20 seasons, Rice set records that may never be broken. 1,549 receptions, 22,895 yards, and 208 total touchdowns. He won 3 Super Bowls with the 49ers, earned a Super Bowl MVP, and was named first-team All-Pro 10 times. Rice wasn't the fastest or strongest, but his precision, discipline, and unmatched work ethic made him unstoppable. His off-season workouts became the stuff of legend, and his ability to rise in big games, from the catch-2 to dominating Super Bowl performances, set him apart. Even in his late 30s, Rice was still producing at a Pro Bowl level. His longevity, consistency, and production are unparalleled in NFL history. For many, Rice isn't just the greatest football player, he's the greatest athlete the game has ever seen. If you enjoyed this, I'm going to be posting a lot here, so it would mean a lot if you subscribed. Thanks for watching.